Amir, I'm going to start with you. What are the prospects of real change in Iran right now? What makes you think things might be changing on the ground in the country?
Thank you, Dr. Mendooza, for having me. And it's believe it or not, very timely and historic moment in Iran. Right now, when we are talking, it's all over the country. It's a protest. The people in all cities, they are out because right now the people are hungry. Nobody could believe it. Iran, a super rich country, and the people, they are coming out to street because of the hunger, because even they are protesting right now for bread, and it's unbelievable.
What's causing this shortage? What's going on?
It's the mullahs. They don't know how to govern. They don't know what they should do. And then after, it's interesting because after Russia attacked Ukraine, they are sending every material to make bread to Russian army. And because of that, the Iranian people, they don't have access to it. And it's a lot of crazy things happening in Iran right now. 2.5 years ago, I can remember when I was here at the Henry Jackson Society's event. That was November 2019.
Yes, that's right, yes.
And when I said the change is coming, I can remember one of the Lord at that event. He was very old. I can't remember what was his name. And he said, Amir, it's a quiet country. Nothing is happening over there. And I said, just wait for it in a couple of weeks. And he laughed at me. Almost he made fun of me. And in a couple of weeks,
we saw the people out on the street.
The huge protest all over more than 200 cities. And Khamenei gave order to shoot the protesters in street. More than 1,500 kids. They have been assassinated by snipers. The snipers who have been hired by IRGC, by Qasem Soleimani, the foreigners, Hashd Shabi, Hezbollah, Lebanon Hezbollah, Iraqis Hashd Shabi, Fatimiyun from Afghanistan, Zainabiyun from Pakistan, Houthis from Yemen, all of them, they came together to kill Iranians in the street. And some mullahs, one of them, Musa Ghazanfarabadi, the head of revolutionary court in Tehran, he said, when the people, they are not supporting our revolution, we are going to ask the foreigners like Hashd Shabi, Hezbollah, Houthis to support us. This is the crazy time we are living in right now in Iran. And after that, regime was lucky. And I guess that China was lucky too, both Iranian regime and China, because of the COVID. And right now, when everything is past, again, Iran, all over the cities, it's protests again. And the change is coming soon.
So you feel change is coming. Katarin, you've obviously looked at Iran for a long time from a slightly different perspective to Amir, of course. You share this sense that there is a mood of change in the air. And actually, we can maybe assess, how do you feel Iran did over the whole COVID period?
I think there's definitely change. If you look at it now, I know that media hasn't really covered the events in Iran, and I'm not quite sure why, trying to assess that situation. But definitely, like Amir said, provinces in Iran are rising up. I've seen countless videos, showing people in the streets unarmed. In certain provinces, actually, people are organizing themselves and arming up against ISGC, Besiege. And they determine, I've received countless messages, by emails and through Instagram. I actually wrote a column for the Times of Israel. I was trying to relay the message that the Iranians had for the rest of the world. There's a hunger for being recognized. There's a hunger for people to tell the truth away from the narrative of the regime, which I found particularly interesting in the sense that Iranians, across, ethnicity, political affiliation, religion, are in, I would say, they're rejecting the narrative, the anti-Semitic narrative coming out of the regime, even though it's kind of covered under the anti-Zionism umbrella, but really it's anti-Semitism. And they're determined to make their voices heard. And I think it's quite interesting. And one of them told me that they reached a point of despair that is so profound that they don't care what happens to them anymore, because everything that could have happened to them already did, to some extent, the torture, the arrest, the oppression, the repression, the lack of civil liberty, the lack of freedom, and they're determined to die if they have to be free of the mullahs. It's quite, the cry is desperate for recognition on the part of the international community, and they're very upset. And all they're asking for is, for the limelight to be shared onto Iran and for the Iranians to actually reclaim not only their history and the narrative, but also their country and their flag.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. Time and time again, people have told me that, we have foreigners in power. This is not our flag. This is not our religion. This is not our, death to Israel, death to America. This is not our cry. We are a people of peace and of civilization. They want to go back to a time where the world could benefit from Iran's influence, and Iranians could benefit from, the world cooperation towards advancement of society. And I think this is the message that we need to push forward. I think that this time is the white revolution as opposed to 1979, which wasn't really a revolution.
Yes, it's sort of a very different. It was a takeover in that kind of way.
It was a coup
Yes.
d'etat. Let's just
Yeah,
call it what it is.
but I think yes, I think.
But I coined it the Iran's.
Okay.
friend.
So now you think that
Yes.
this will happen, but Amir, you pointed out quite rightly, the Iranian regime is not afraid of using force to crush, revolution in this sort of way. So what's going to change this time? I mean, they will call out their prestige, they will call out their IRGC, and those people will, as they've done before, shoot the protesters. So how is this going to, how will this turn out? And we've seen a tremendous brutality in 2009, for example, that accompanied the Green Revolution. The lengths they were willing to go, I think, surprised many people. And of course, it was shameful how the West did not call it out at the time. Maybe we'd do a better job now. But clearly, that possibility exists that they will use that force. So what's going to be different this time?
Before going there, I want to say, Kاترین, you're 100% right. She knows even our community better than the Iranians.
Well,
and
that's good.
she said something about the flag. It's not our flag. And the language on the flag, it's not our language. It's not Farsi, it's Arabic.
Yeah.
None of our symbols is there at all. Yeah, definitely some people from some other countries, they hijacked our country. You are 100% right. But regarding do you know what's cutlet, Dr. Mendowza?
What is
Cutlet?
cutlet? No, what is...
That's a French word.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
It's
Is
type
she
of-
talking about the meat? Yes,
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
type of food.
Okay.
Yeah, and
What, a cut of the meat, you mean? Or, yeah.
Kind of ribs.
Okay.
And you know, when you say cutlet in Iran, it was a lovely food
Okay.
before 2019. But after 2019, or let's say January 2020, I guess January 2nd or 3rd, when President Trump made a cutlet, the lovely one. Yeah,
Yes, it is.
in Baghdad airport.
Okay.
And it was called, before being cutlet, was called Qasem Soleimani.
Right, I see what you mean. Yes.
Everybody in Iran, they are calling him right now Qasem Cutlet. I branded him that name on my Twitter at that time. Then Twitter totally banned me. And
And we wondered why you weren't on social media. It's very interesting. Okay, fine.
yeah, and then because of that, because Qasem Soleimani was in charge of that bloodbath then. Qasem Soleimani was,
So you feel Soleimani was the key figure in the repression?
100%, it's a fact.
Okay.
He was the what's called attack dog.
It was a mass
No, that's fine.
executioner.
Attack dog is
it's
a phrase.
the supreme leader was using him all the time.
Okay, to go out there and do
Kill
what
the
you need.
protesters, not just in Iran, in Syria.
But
in
someone's
all
taken
the-
over from him.
After that,
Mhm.
everybody else, they are afraid of being cutlet. And
And
because
so
of
you
that,
think-
nobody is going to that sit anymore. And
see,
the
I
regime
see.
is at a very weak position right now. During last 2.5 years, we had a lot of protests, but we have never seen that brutality again.
Right, that's interesting.
Because
So
he is not there. Qasem Soleimani is not there. And then later we heard from Zarif, from the foreign minister, that Qasem Soleimani was getting the orders from Kremlin, from Putin. And it was huge controversy in Iran then. All the media, they have been talking about it. Still, Javad Zarif was the foreign minister when he said that. And it's supposed to be a secret interview part, the secret part of an interview, but it leaked to the media. And you know what? When Qasem Soleimani is not there, when regime is bankrupt because of the oil sanction, and when 97% of the country, they want regime change. It's all the surveys we are doing shows that 97% of the country. Regime doesn't have enough prison. doesn't have enough prison guards, doesn't have Qasem Soleimani anymore. And most of the people who believed in this system, believed in this ideology for last 4 decades, who supported this regime, the Basijis, the IRGC, all of those people, either they had the belief or they had salary. Right now they don't have salary and they don't have the belief. Everything is set for a real revolution. And again, as Katarin said, 1979 was not a revolution. It was a coup d'etat by Russians. Russians, they worked on that coup d'etat. It was part of my book, Comrade Ayatollah. When that book was sold in underground market in Iran, more than 3 million copies. And I put all the facts and documents there, which shows it was not a revolution at all. It was just a coup d'etat planned by them. And that was interesting for me when Katarin read the book Mitrokhin Archive. And when first we started talking with each other, and she was telling me that, and I said, "Oh, Katarin, have you seen the other book, Comrade Ayatollah, which revealed exactly all these documents?"
Like the connectivity between the
exactly. And you know what? It was not a revolution then, but now it is a revolution, and it will happen soon.
Right. So look, I haven't obviously seen your figures, so I don't know if 97% of the people really are on side. I'm going to take your word for it for the moment. Catherine, let's assume Amir is right for a second. What he has said, of course, is that the country is near bankruptcy, but there are these nuclear talks going on in Vienna right now, which may end up giving the regime a lifeline economically. Is there not a danger that just as the regime once again looks like it's going to topple financially, the West will basically give it a moment and a way out of prison by giving a nuclear deal that will include, of course, vast sanctions?
Of course. I think, the idea that, Western nations would actually imagine for a second that Iran is actually serious about, any JCPOA or any form of a nuclear agreement that would indeed prevent it, to access a militarized version of a nuclear program is insanity. Everything tells you, actually several people came out, within the regime telling, very publicly that, yes, of course, Iran is pursuing, military ambitions. So it's insane to think that we would ever consider. The other point that is important for me is that in order to negotiate with anyone, with any party, you need to have some understanding of the common ground and share similar values in order to prevent any conceptual misunderstanding of the agreement that you're signing. And I think that it's rather clear that Iran is standing so far away from, Western nations in terms of understanding what human rights means, what being committed to an agreement means as well legally. It's foolish, for us to even imagine that it would be possible. But beyond that, I think it's important also to note that the regime is getting older. So forget the Russian connection. And by the way, Russia actually suggested that it would be the guardian of that agreement in terms of making sure that Iran would indeed commit to the JCPOA.
Right.
So
yes,
within that optic, you need to understand that there's a very clear, effort on the part of Russia and Iran to, rely on one another and to bounce, off of each other in order to project this agenda that they have in common. This ideology that they share in terms of expanding their ideology. And preventing, Western nations to actually spread, a secular democratic movement across not just the Middle East, but if you look at the footprint of the RSGC in Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia, you could literally map out Russia's move as well on that of the RSGC. And this is not a coincidence. It's a concerted effort on the part of Moscow to make sure that there is a push against Western value and liberalism. And Western democracy and secularism, and this is important. And we're not listening to people like Alexander Dugin, who is the chief propagandist of Vladimir Putin.
Yes,
when he tells us
famously nationalistic. Yes,
exactly. And I know for a fact because I was there that he was a great friend to Nader Khalilzadeh, who I was friends with, for great many years. I've seen them sit together. I was witness to a conversation that they had in terms of how do we do this together. How do we, find a way to convince Shia Muslim across the world that actually our form of orthodoxy in Russia matches their own view, and they found that mysticism was a good way to kind of, clump it together. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is insanity in the making. But for some reason, the Biden administration has looked upon Iran and Russia's moves and thought that it was a great idea to entertain them, to allow them to move, ever closer to our borders in the sense, literally in Ukraine, and thinking that let's make a deal with them because obviously they would commit to whatever we're asking them to commit to. There's a danger here, and I don't like to make parallels, but if you look at the 1930s and the way that Hitler had bombs in Poland and other countries, and we kept, sitting on the back foot of it all, thinking he would never dare do that. He would never dare push that far. And level. He did. Yeah. He did again and again and again when we had no choice but to intervene and to actually sacrifice millions of lives, to that war effort. So I would like to think that we read history and that maybe this time around we will choose to act before it's too late and before we have to commit millions of lives to that fight for freedom. Because it is a fight for freedom. Yes. And Iranians deserve and have earned the courtesy of our attention and our respect in terms of how they should determine their future.
Well, I would agree with you there from a human level, of course. Equally, of course, from a strategic level, we've had such problems from this regime. It should be in everyone's interest to further people power, if you like, in this sort of approach. Now, Amir, let's talk about the new constitution. You've got an idea for what Iran could look like post a removal of this clerical regime. Tell us a bit more about it.
Working on the constitution case, it started probably 21 years ago in my life. During this fight, when I have seen, we do have the biggest problem we do have in our country is not anything but the constitution. Because whatever regime came up, we had the constitution for last 115 years. We had the constitutional monarchy system, which the constitution was wrong then, because the constitution gave the ultimate power to the king. The constitution should not do that.
Correct.
Even the UK, as I checked last time, you still don't have the constitution. It is the unwritten constitution.
Well, we did, yes, exactly. And it doesn't give the power to the, it doesn't give the power to the Queen either. I want to just make clear.
Okay. So, but even here in 1688, gave the hope to the world at the Glorious Revolution that you can give the power to the parliament, people's representative. And then they removed the power, most of the power, from the hand of the king and queen. And which then, a century later, the American founding fathers, they said, oh, that was a good idea. And even Montesquieu said that was a good idea. Let's write a book about it, The Spirit of the Laws, to come up with the idea of constitution. And the constitution should not let the power be centralized in the hand of one person or one entity. But if you look at the Iranian constitutions, during the constitutional monarchy or the Islamic Republic of Iran, both constitutions, either it's in the hand of the king or in the hand of the supreme leader. Yes. They gave the power of God to these two persons, specifically to the supreme leader. And then we have been looking at this, and both constitutions had the official religion in power. We cannot say we have equality for all, and at the same time we have official religion. Official religion means, okay, whoever is Shia, Muslim Shia, is a first-class citizen, and the rest of the country are second-class, third-class, fourth-class citizens. It's not equality anymore. And this is the thing happened during the last 115 years in Iran. And then we came up with the idea that let's draft a new constitution. Why not? It was not easy. It took 20 years. But at the end, we came up with the draft. It's the proposed draft constitution for future free and democratic Iran. I have some of the copies there.
And I guess, there's no point in showing online, but where can people look at it if they're watching?
It's easy because we have the app for it. It's called Iranian. If they go to PDCI, Proposed Draft Constitution of Iran, PDCI, they can find the application and look at it. It's in Farsi and English. And also on our website, IranianCongress.com, they can see the draft constitution there.
Right. And presumably it's a parliamentary democracy in the way that we would understand it.
We have the tripod system over there, and it's, believe it or not, we drafted this constitution. This is it's unique. It's the only draft constitution in the planet that can cover the monarchy for Iran and the republic at the same time. You don't need to change even one word. If the people voted for monarchy, it can be Iranian monarchy, and if they voted for republic, it can be the Republic of Iran. And both, just one, you won't believe it, but when you read it, you will love it, because we wanted to bring two forces. We have two big forces in our oppositions.
Yes.
It's the monarchists and the people who are supporting republic.
Of course.
We are giving them this hope that both of you can work together, not fighting with each other. Work together for this constitution to bring it in power.
I've got to put you on a spot, though. Are you a monarchist?
No, I'm a Republican.
You're a Republican.
Yeah.
Fine, okay. Are you a monarchist?
No, I'm French. I'm very Republican.
Fine, Republican in this kind of way. But this is interesting, as you say.
But in my organization,
absolutely.
Probably 30% of the National Iranian Congress, 30% of our members are monarchists.
Absolutely. As you
fine.
say, the key thing is it's up to Iran to determine its own future in that regard, what form of government it might want. But the key thing is you've got there power to the people in the constitution. Which
yes, 100% of the power is in the hand of the people. And the people, they are picking, they are voting for the king or queen.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
They are voting for it every 12 years. If the people said we want a monarchy, it's part of this constitution. They say, okay, you want a monarchy? Just vote for your king or queen. And after 12 years, it will be a vote again. And if no, it's a republic, because we found the special place for the king or queen. It's as the head of judiciary branch without having any vote.
I
said, okay, sit there, don't do anything in executive branch or in legislative branch. Just sit there, because some people, they wanted to have monarchy in Iran. And it was not easy to find this solution, but
to find a solution to get that worked in. Well, that's very interesting. Right, I recommend everyone.
All three branches of government, all of them, the head will be voted by the people
either way. So an elective monarchy, a very interesting concept if that's the route you want to go. Now, Katarin, last question essentially to you. Ebrahim Raisi, you got to meet him. He's obviously the president right now. I'm not sure he might want to stand for this role of elective monarch, although I don't think he'll get elected in this way. But tell us a little bit about him, because I think the smart money is on him should this regime continue, replacing the supreme leader as the super. So tell us more about him and what his sort of backstory is. It's not a very pleasant backstory.
No, it's not a pleasant backstory, but he's a very good politician. I mean, he has lobbied the leadership in Iran to ensure that he would be put in at the presidency. He was formerly the head of Mashhad, and Mashhad has billions of dollars worth of assets to its name, as well as a militia. So he was a very powerful man, and many argue that he was actually in direct opposition to Khamenei as far as power was concerned.
Right.
So it was a lot, and he did this on purpose. He's a very calculated man. So he basically showed the leadership that there was a danger there should there be like a lack of alignment, and that he could be, a tool and an advantage for the leadership, as well as he could be the enemy of, and actually, somewhat maybe hug the power away or move the center of power away from Tehran to Mashhad. Those were the conversations that people were having. When I got to Iran in 2017 to do the interview, it was said to me very clearly.
At the time, he was head of the judiciary at this point?
Yes, he was. And he lost those elections, but they actually told me what was going to happen, which is interesting, because they told me, well, you can't say that, but yes, he's going to lose this election and he's going to get elected, in the next one. And they were telling me that historically in Iran, it was always, in good fashion to have a president to, run 2 terms. And this is exactly what happened with Rouhani. So it was quite interesting. I was thinking, are we talking about real democracy, or are you able to, to kind of foretell what's going to happen? So it gave me an indication as to the kind of democracy that we're talking about in Iran. But he's a very good, I think that he kind of reminded me of Obama in a certain way, in the way that he's very good at reading a teleprompter and at presenting a certain face that will assuage you. He's giving you exactly what you want and telling you exactly what you want to hear. He's very good at reading people that way. I know that I get criticized for saying that he came across as a very, intelligent man. Because people have argued that, he's not intelligent, he's a butcher, which is true. But like I said, he gives you the impression of he's really good at, acting out. And he's surrounded by people telling him exactly what to say, how to say it. And he has, he has experts spoon feeding him what he should say. Our interview was so redacted that he knew before I was asking the question what I was going to ask, because he's the one who wrote the questions. And by the way, the interview was organized by RT, which is the Russian channel. So there you go again. But it's important because, again, the reason why, and I'm the only, and I'm sure that Amir can confirm that, I'm the only Western journalist ever to be allowed in Iran a day before the elections. And that was done, by Nader Talebzadeh, who intervened extremely heavily. I literally walked into Iran on a tourist visa. As a tourist, you're not allowed to go anywhere near any political, official, let alone interview them for a foreign channel. It was made possible by number one, Nader, who's in direct line with Moscow. Number two, because it was for RT and therefore it was allowed and vetted. And Nader literally bypassed Sebal. So I remember sitting in an office having a not so friendly conversation with someone telling me, you can't do that. You came with the tourist visa. Who are you? I don't know you. We haven't vetted you. Like it's not going to happen. Nader made 2 phone calls and that was the end of it. Raisi literally said, I'm seeing her. This is happening. And I flew back in his private plane to go back to Tehran. It was very kind of him. But yeah. No, absolutely. But it kind of gives you an insight as to the inner workings of this Islamic Republic that they're talking about and the democratic system that they have. It's not democratic. It's all orchestrated, outside even of Tehran. It was all done in Moscow, made possible by the chief propagandist of the Islamic Republic, facilitated by the chief propagandist of Moscow. So there you go.
That sort of symbiotic nature.
Are they moving together everywhere?
Right, we're almost out of time. Amir, last time you came to London, you made this prediction. You said people will be on the streets within 2 weeks, and it proved correct. When will people be on the streets this time in a serious way that's going to...
They are already in the streets right now.
And when's that going to lead to?
And it will go, I guess, to the end, because right now regime doesn't have any solution. The people are hungry. And this is the most dangerous type of revolution the human history could see. It happened in France before, and French Revolution was because of that, and then everywhere else. When the people are hungry, it's why they should sit at home. And I guess this will go to the end. And let's see. I'm a little worried about the Biden administration because some crazies over there, some terrorist supporters like Robert Mueller, they can cause some troubles. But this movement is very strong inside the country. And the moment we are talking, literally, and all over the cities, the people are out. They're fighting in the street with the regime. But let me disagree with you in one single point.
Do it quickly. Yes.
Raisi is a dumb. He's dummy.
I say give me the impression of.
Okay, you two are going to have to take this out in a different way. We're not going to get into this whole conversation. Let's be showing anybody once. It's fine to have that impression. And if he gave that impression, it's good to know as well that he's capable of doing that. Right. Katarin, Amir, thank you for joining us. We wish you, obviously, Godspeed in trying to bring democracy to Iran. And thank you all for joining us at home. We will see you again next time for another edition of The Scoop. Thank you all.